Okay, this is a response video to a question from a commenter called Solo Assassin. He was asking about how some top tier players have a augmentation of more than 125. So there's a couple of ways that you can get that, and I'm going to go over that. I went ahead and used my non-seasonal character because I had some Whisper of Atonements that were less than 125 so that I could demonstrate this with. Um, but basically, the Whisper of Atonement here is nothing more than a legendary gem with absolutely no special abilities, right? So like Taeguk here, you get your 6.8 or whatever increased damage depending on your gem level, plus a 2% damage uh, reduction for armor, kind of thing, right? Whisper of Atonement doesn't have any special abilities. It's strictly used for augmenting your gear, uh, but regular legendary gems can also be used for augmenting your gear. Um, and all of that is done through the Cultus on Despair. So basically, you level up your gems as high as you want, or as high as you can get them to. Then you mix them with whatever jewel is specific to your character. So in this case, with the Demon Hunter, it's going to be the emeralds for dexterity. But if you're running a wizard, you could use, the amethysts for intelligence. If you're running a barbarian, you could use the strength um, for him, or you could do a combination. If you want to balance it all out and have more strength and intelligence on a character that normally doesn't have. Like with my Demon Hunter here, I could take some of these augmentations that I have and change them around. So instead of gearing everything towards dexterity, maybe I can give it a little bit more strength, right? Which would increase my armor naturally, and give me more defensive abilities, or I can increase the intelligence, which would then give me more resistance to, fire damage or poison damage and things like that. And so you can mix it up however you want. I pretty much gear everything towards dexterity, just so that I have higher damage, and can kill stuff faster. But you can augment your gear using any gem. Doesn't matter. It can be one of the legendary gems that has special abilities to it, or it could be the Whisper of Atonement gem. And you can go higher than 125 on Whisper of Atonements. They level up just like any other gem, right? So I'm going to level up this 104 because it's a guaranteed 100% every time, since this Greater Rift was a 120 that I just completed. Um, and so I'm just going to level them up. It will go higher than 125. If you've completed a Greater Rift higher than 125, you can then augment the Whisper of Atonement gem higher than 125. It works the same as any other legendary gem in the game. It's just that it doesn't have any other special abilities to it. So you don't want to, put it in a socketed item because it's not going to get you anything. You strictly use it to add augmentation to your gear so that you don't have to waste your legendary items with special attributes in its place. Um, and that's how it works. It, like I said, it levels up the same as any other gem, and the higher you can get it, the higher your augmentation is going to be. So in this case, I don't have an augmentation on my crafted primal satchel here. So if I wanted to, I could go to any one of these Whisper of Atonements and use them and slap an augmentation on there. Or I could take one of my other legendary gems here, if they're a higher level, and use it to slap an augmentation on there. I have this Bane of the Trap sitting at a 122. I could use that. I'm only going to get probably a 580 something, 590, maybe a 600 um, augmentation out of that. Um, but that's how you do it. Um, the difference between regular legendary gems and the Whisper of Atonement, the only difference in them is how long it takes you to get it to that higher level, right? If you run an Echoing Nightmare, you're guaranteed the Whisper of Atonement when you complete it. And then depending on the level of Echoing Nightmare you complete, that's going to depend on the level of Whisper of Atonement. So your Whisper Atonement gem is always one level less than the level you complete in Echoing Nightmare. So in order to get a 125, you have to do a 126 Echoing Nightmare. You have to make it to the 126 at least that far. And that's usually where I stop because the Whisper of Atonement doesn't go any higher than 125. So to go beyond level 126 in an Echoing Nightmare doesn't really get you anything other than if you can make it to, I think it's like level 140 or higher, a goblin shrine shows up that you can click on, and then all the goblins start popping out and you just kill them and you can get more gear. But, you know, I don't sweat that too much. It's not that big a deal for me. For the goblin shrine, I'm just wanting to get my 125 atonement gem and then go from there. So that's the easiest way to augment your gear, is do an Echoing Nightmare, get the level 126 in the Echoing Nightmare, which isn't too hard to do if you have a well-geared character, and get your 125 atonement gem. Then you can just use that in conjunction with the Call to San Despair spell in the cube, and mix it with your appropriate gem and whatever gear, ancient or higher, that you want to augment, and add an augmentation to it, right? And then you're done. And then you'll get that plus 625 minimum that way. But again, you could also use a regular gem. It doesn't really matter as long as it's a legendary gem. It could either be Whispering of Atonement, or it could be one of the legendary gems that has a special ability to it if you want to waste it. And you can use that to augment your gear. And again, Whispering of Atonements can be leveled up the same as legendary gems can. It's just a matter of being able to complete the highest level rifts that you can possibly complete that are above 125. And the way that I make that happen sometimes is I will get into public games playing with other players who, like myself, are at least a 2000 or higher Paragon level. Preferably, 3000. Because that is going to allow you to have a better chance of completing a higher greater rift. So that's what I do most of the time, is I get into public games, check everybody's Paragon level right off the bat. If they're not all at least 2500 or above, I'm out. And I'll give it a few seconds or whatever and then try to rejoin a public game. I want public games with people who are at least 2000 or higher, because then our combined efforts gives us a better chance of defeating greater rifts that are like 130, 135, 140, etc. Because then I can use that to level up the Whisper of Atonement gems if I have them, and get them to higher levels, therefore get higher augmentations. But again, you can do that with any gem. It does not have to be a Whisper of Atonement. So if you see a lot of these high tier players who have augmentations that are in the 700 range or higher, which I believe the max is 750 with a 150 gem, it's because they've used the Greater Rift gem leveling to level up their Whisper of Atonement or another legendary gem in order to get it that high. And a lot of those top tier players, if you look at them, look at their Paragons. A lot of those guys are probably pushing Paragons that are around the 2500 to 3000 range or more. And they've been playing in multiplayer games where they're, giving themselves the best odds to complete the higher, greater rifts in order to get their gems to that level. Because something you have to keep in mind with the way the legendary gem leveling works is you have to be at least 10 levels higher than what your gem is to get a 100% guarantee level up of your gem. So if you've got a 125 and you want to level it up, you've got to be playing a Greater Rift level 135 or higher. That 135, if you complete it, that'll get you a 100% chance of leveling up your gem one time. You'll level it up to 126. Now, your 100% drops down to a 90%. So still good odds to get a good succeed as opposed to a fail. But then if you get the succeed and you go up to a 127, well, now your chance of leveling it to a 128 has dropped to 80%, right? And so if you're playing at the same level of what your gem is, it's usually around a 60% chance to level up, which is not very good odds. And so, anything below an equal level, of course, the percentages drop immediately. So you always want to be playing at least 5 to 10 levels higher to get your best odds of upgrading your gem at least 1 or 2 levels. And so the best way to do that is to play in groups with people who are higher Paragon levels than yourself, so that you can maximize the chances of beating that higher, greater rift level, giving you therefore the better percentage chance of upgrading your gems to a higher level so that you can use them in augmentations. So, but the Whisper of Atonement gem works the same as any other gem. It just has no special abilities, and it's strictly meant for augmenting your gear. And it's just a way of Diablo 3 offering you an easier path to augmentation as opposed to using the standard legendary gems. Because if you can complete a 126 Echoing Nightmare, you get a 125 right off the bat, right? Boom, you're done. It's at a 125. You get a 625 augmentation to your gear, and it's awesome. But if you go the other route and you use your standard legendary gems, well, you got to level those out from 0, right? So you're starting at 0 and leveling them up. You're playing a lot of greater rifts, which means you're also playing a lot of Nephilim rifts to get the greater rift stones, to play the greater rifts in order to then level up your gem. So one way is just a shorter path through the Whisper of Atonement gem than the other way. But both ways accomplish the same goal in the end. The higher you get those legendary gems, the higher your augmentation is going to be. So whichever path you choose to take is up to you. I like to go the Whisper of Atonement path, just because it's a shorter path, and I know that with either my non-seasonal Demon Hunter or my seasonal Demon Hunter, either way, I can always complete a 125 with them, and then I go from there. Some of these Whisper of Atonements that I have that are less than a 125, it's because I actually earned them with my other characters. I either earned them with the Barbarian, or I earned them with like my Necromancer or something, in testing to see how well they would do in an Echoing Nightmare. And they do pretty good, usually around a level 100. But my Demon Hunter, I pretty much consistently always get a 125 with him. And so that's the route that I go for myself. I level the gems using the Demon Hunter. I get them up to the 125 range, and then I use them on the other tunes to get them augmentations on their gear that's equivalent to that 625. But I hope that answers your question, Solo Assassin. If you have any more questions, just let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks.